Hey everyone, it's Doug with B&H. I had the chance recently to get a hands-on look at the brand new Ronin 4D from DJI. Integrating a 6K full-frame camera into a specially designed 4-axis gimbal, Ronin 4D is probably the easiest way to get cinema-level footage in a gimbal setup, with a lot less balancing and configuration than is normally necessary. The All-in-One system provides an additional Z-axis of stabilization aimed at helping inexperienced gimbal operators maintain a steadier image when walking, and it allows for some really slick camera moves. The image quality is superb, and it has a lot of pro video features such as internal ProRes RAW recording, internal ND filters, high frame rates, and robust monitoring tools that make it ideal for filmmakers, content creators, event videographers, and more. The Ronin 4D is an all-in-one design, and I really can't stress that enough. Every aspect of the camera is either directly built in or connects within seconds. Building up the Ronin 4D is ridiculously easy. You can see here we have these contacts that have slide mechanisms for the grips. So these just slide right in. You heard that satisfying click, lock it into place, and then with this lever, you can rotate the grip in any direction you want. So it's the same thing on the other side for the left grip. Now right here, same slide, make sure it's unlocked, go in, lock, and move into position. Take the monitor out, and that is pretty much it. Based around a full-frame 6K sensor, the Ronin 4D produces cinema-level images, even providing internal ProRes RAW and ProRes HQ recording. The gimbal system compensates for pan, tilt, and roll, but lives up to its 4D namesake with the addition of a Z-axis stabilizer. The camera itself is fantastic though, with gorgeous 6K full-frame video that records straight to SSDs. The autofocus tracking, exposure controls, and monitoring tools go a long way in framing up the image, while the internal NDs mean you can shoot with the camera in sunny situations. The variety of high frame rate options lets you get beautiful, smooth footage in concert with the gimbal. What makes the Ronin 4D especially fascinating, though, is the high degree of customization. It's got a quick release system to switch out lens mounts, allowing it to use Sony E, Leica M, and of course DJI's own DL lenses. A LiDAR focusing module on top assists in autofocusing, and detachable grips provide you with every control at your fingertips. That's on top of a touchscreen LCD screen that gives you deeper access to the camera's menus. There's a lot to show off here, so let's just get right into it. There are 3 gimbal modes on the Ronin 4D. Right now we're in pan follow mode, which only follows panning. You can see here as I move, it smooths out the panning motion, but it doesn't cover tilt. So when you tilt up and down, it actually counters it and prevents you from tilting up and down in any direction. So it's great for shots like this, where you lower and come back up to the final frame. Now, if you want to incorporate tilting, then you just have to use the PT or pan tilt follow mode. And this follows both panning and tilting. So again, you can see it's smoothing out the panning motion. There's a little delay as I go, but it also will do the same to the tilt. So you can kind of get a little bit of both in here, and you get smooth motion all around. So this is if you don't want to maintain the same axis. Now the final mode, which we demoed before, was the FPV or first person view mode. And this is kind of like a free form mode where you can in fact go off axis and tilt. It just smooths out all of your motion. So this is very free. You can do all sorts of Dutch angles. You can go in pretty much any way you want, and it smooths out the motion for you beautifully. On terrain like the grass here, smoothly stepping on the unpaved surface could be an issue for some operators, and in general, gimbal operation does require some careful walking. Well, the Ronin 4D's name does come from its 4th axis of stabilization, countering walking movement. This is particularly helpful for inexperienced operators who may not have their gimbal legs quite yet. Focusing on a gimbal is a challenge in and of itself, and the solution on the Ronin 4D is quite remarkable. Manual focusing is performed with the focus wheel on the right-hand grip, and it feels very responsive. What is shockingly reliable, though, is the Ronin 4D's autofocus tracking. With the help of a LiDAR module on top of the lens, plugged in via USB-C, distance data is accurately and rapidly measured. The resulting AF performance is super fast, and tracking is able to keep up with the rapid dance moves you see here. So right now we're in single point autofocus mode, and what that's doing is if I hit the button, you can see I turn it off, turn it on. You see the assisted manual function coming up. I can touch to focus on the monitor, and it does actually move the distance meter. The only problem is, of course, it's responsive to any change in the frame. So if I move the camera over, the point remains the same and it autofocuses immediately to the background. There's single point AF, which is constant, of course, so this is probably only ideal if your subject can maintain their position in frame as you move around them, and of course, if you can maintain around them. What I want to do is enable not just AMF, but changes from spot to smart. You can see it holds pretty reliably and consistently. You can see it's rarely losing them. Following pretty well, even through turns, going slightly off frame. It's actually incredibly consistent. AF is enabled on the right-hand grip, though the AF mode has to be configured in the menu. And yes, AF is still fully engaged even during the camera's high frame rate modes. We shot up to 96 FPS in 4K, and the camera only occasionally drifted away from the subject. Given how fast this movement is, slower subjects in more controlled environments should have absolutely no trouble staying locked in. Slow motion, as you can see, is just beautiful here, but we'll get into the details soon enough. With a full-frame 6K sensor on board, there's a lot to look at when it comes to image and recording spec. The dual native ISOs of 800 and 5000 mean you can use the Ronin 4D in some pretty tricky low-light situations. In our case, of course, what really came in handy were the built-in ND filters. Proper exposure should not be an issue with this camera. Though we don't have precise dynamic range numbers, RAW recording allowed me to expose for the harsh sunlight, giving me room to lift the shadows and maintain the sunny highlights in the trees and sky. So I want to try out some slow motion. You have a few options here, but it does require some setup. So I'm going to hit the FPS button up here, bring up a quick menu on the side, and the biggest thing to note is that you have to do any slow motion with whole number increments. So 2397, which I'm in, won't actually work. If I hit it, you'll see there's no other options, since it separates it into project and sensor rate. If I go to 24 though, now I have other options opened up. At 6K in full frame mode, the maximum you can go is actually 48. And you will get an alert on the side here to switch your field of view or codec if you want to go higher. You can go up to 60 in 6K, but it has to be based on 30, again, because it's doing whole number math here. So whoops, if I go to 60, the only thing it has to do is crop this to 239. So you do lose some vertical resolution, but you do maintain the full frame width. Crop down to Super 35 and you can record up to 96 FPS in 4K. ProRes HQ also offers 6K recording with the same options, and of course this is a very, very welcome addition since not all workflows require RAW quality. Lastly, the camera can record in H.264 as well if you're looking to really maximize space, though this is limited to 4K recording only. You can also record in DJI's D-Log format to ProRes HQ, which should save you a little bit on processing power and storage space, while affording you more color grading flexibility than H.264. That brings us to the recording medium. The Ronin 4D uses SSDs in a specialized enclosure with a USB-C connection on the end. This actually connects to both the camera and to a computer, so you don't even need a reader to access your footage. Just plug in a USB-C cable. So you should be able to see by now that the Ronin 4D is a pretty unique system. At first glance, it's got a lot going on in terms of locking mechanisms, modularity, and moving parts. But it's actually shockingly simple to set up. The bulk of the Ronin 4D is already assembled, and in fact, it can be packed away in its included case, nearly ready to shoot. Even the monitor can simply fold up against the body. The only things you need to attach are the grips. They slide in and lock into place, though they also have a quick release latch that prevent them from sliding out. The grips can then be rotated into your desired position. Now the grips control most of the main camera functions. On the left grip you have a full range joystick that's used for camera movement within the gimbal, while on the right you have a focus wheel that also doubles as an adjustment wheel for the main exposure settings. So looking over at the LiDAR module on top of the lens, this attaches via locking USB-C connection to the Zenmuse camera, and with a simple press of the AF button on the right grip, the camera autofocuses instantly. Lens compatibility is probably one of the most versatile aspects of the Ronin 4D system. Though we weren't able to test a variety of them here, the lens mount can be changed out with a simple quick-release system, allowing you to attach Sony E and Leica M glass as well. You can see here we have DJI's own DL 35mm f2.8 LS ASPH lens, which is very lightweight, making it ideal for a gimbal setup. The wide lens compatibility means you can also fit the Ronin 4D into a broader multi-camera setup, letting you share lenses between systems. The monitor on board is a gorgeous 1000-nit display, and it can fold up against the camera, flip out, and rotate in a number of directions. It is a touchscreen display, which lets you configure most of the exposure settings directly, but it also has physical menu buttons and a dial all across it that provide you quick access to the majority of the deeper menu settings. You'll notice here recording options, system settings, and of course gimbal calibration, which is super easy. The auto tune button does exactly that, balancing the gimbal into position in just a few seconds. Now there's two things to mention on the back. The battery is DJI's TB50 smart battery, also seen on their Inspire 2, but behind the battery is a built-in wireless transmitter that can send the video feed to the O3 Pro monitor. What is the O3 Pro? So there's more to the Ronin 4D than just the camera and gimbal. I have it off, of course, but that's because we're going to transform it. The grips come off very easily. There's two locking mechanisms, and we'll keep those tight for now, because what I'm about to do is put these onto a monitor. This is the O3 Pro, and it actually takes the controls from the Ronin 4D. They slide into place just like they do on the camera, and you can actually control it just like you would the camera itself. This is even a touchscreen, so let's turn it on, and it actually connects almost instantly. So you can see here, I have direct control of the camera. I could even change the focus, and I can move everything with the joystick. The latency is super low. It's almost imperceptible versus the built-in monitor on the camera, which means that you can still use this for focus pulling or accurate camera moves, anything like that. You don't have to worry about it. It's a gorgeous 1500 nit screen, so you have an even brighter image than this one. It's also touch controllable, so all of the menus can be accessed here through touch control, just like you would on the, whoops, here we go. You can even see signal strength and channel mode, but everything is accessible just like it is on the main camera. The only thing that I can't really get on this monitor is peaking, which, as you see, turns on the main screen, but not on the O3 Pro. Other than that though, you have pretty much all the same control right down to the touchscreen configuration itself. The moving nature of the Ronin 4D makes the dimensions a little hard to precisely measure, but as far as weight is concerned, the camera minus lenses and battery, but including the grips, battery, and monitor, is about 4.67 kilograms. For everything that's built into this system though, that's pretty good. The Ronin 4D is a complete cinema gimbal system, and there's almost nothing missing from the setup. The buttery smooth motion, 6K imagery, and professional monitoring make it a truly all-in-one design. Now personally, I could see this being the only camera used on a number of shoots. Music videos come to mind along with events. Content creators and event videographers should also seriously take note of the flexibility and ease of use with the Ronin 4D. You can unpack and start shooting with it in just minutes, which can mean a lot for those shooters in particular. So that's it for the DJI Ronin 4D. I'm Doug with B&H, and I'll see you next time.